Wow, I'm super excited today. Welcome all the guests. I can see all the participants. I can see you, Fure. Oluwakemi, you are welcome. Kindly use the chat box to introduce yourself. Welcome Oluwakemi Bello. You are welcome, I can see all of you. Welcome to the June WIMBIZ eRoundtable. I am super excited to be here. We will start shortly. Kindly invite your loved ones, your friends. Invite as many people as you can. Wow, I can see Audrey, welcome. Ajoke, welcome. Jamila Yusuf, you are welcome. Kindly use the chat box to introduce yourself. You are welcome. We appreciate every one of you. Oh, it is 3 o'clock. We're going to start right away. My name is Ekoma Daniel Chikadibia. I'm a staff of First Bank of Nigeria Limited. I have 15 years experience in the banking industry. I lead customer service and credit. Let's discuss that shortly. Now, before we go ahead, I'd like you to invite as many friends as you can. If you have anyone that is not here, because today is going to be a fantastic event. We have wonderful panelists. Your take home would be unbelievable. Kindly invite as many people as possible. You are all welcome. Okay, let's talk about WIMBIZ. Let me do a quick introduction about WIMBIZ. WIMBIZ HQ, help me. Hello. Okay, let me read it from my own document. Okay, Women in Management, Business and Public Sector, Public Service WIMBIZ is a non-profit organization that has over the last 19 years MPT representation of women in leadership position in the public and private sector. WIMBIZ is also a volunteer-based organization funded largely by donations, contributions by members and partners, and is a supporter for the Code of Ethics and Conduct for NGO. For more information on WIMBIZ, kindly log on www.wimbiz.org. Let me say that again. Please visit our website, www.wimbiz.org. We want to use this opportunity to thank our sponsors for the month of June. Wow, such a coincidence. I work with First Bank, and First Bank is our sponsor for the month of June. We appreciate you, First Bank. As a family of WIMBIZ, we want to say thank you. We are truly the first. Now, at the end of the roundtable, a poll will be pulled up for a quick evaluation. And thereafter, after the evaluation, we'll send an email to you privately. Kindly endeavor to complete the evaluation because we want to get a feedback from you. We'd love to hear from you. We want to know what your take home from the event and how it was. Now, I want to invite all our participants that are not WIMBIZ associates. I am an associate. Someday I'll be able to tell my WIMBIZ. WIMBIZ has changed my life forever, and I can't wait to tell the story. If you're not a WIMBIZ associate, kindly join us. If you have attended any WIMBIZ event at least twice, you can apply to become a WIMBIZ associate. And to do that, you go to membership@wimbiz.org, and then we encourage all our associates. We appreciate every one of you. For those of you that are yet to pay your membership dues, kindly do so. And for all of you that have paid, we appreciate you and we love you. Thank you so much for all that you have done. We'd like to invite all the participants to please tag us on social media using the hashtag WIMBIZ eRoundtable, hashtag WIMBIZ webinar on social media. On Instagram, we're doing WIMBIZ NG, and on Twitter @WIMBIZ. Thank you. I want to use this opportunity to introduce our moderator. Her name is Chizo. I got to meet Chizo and I follow Chizo on Instagram. Chizo Mazile is Chizo is the Managing Director and Executive Director Officer, MD and CEO of Financial Institution Training Center, FICC. She has over 2 decades of professional experience that cuts across marketing, business processes, and re-engineering market growth and strategy. I would like Chizo would introduce herself better and tell us more about herself. Chizo, over to you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Chizo.
It's always a pleasure to have all of us. My name is Chizo Malize, as Ekoma had started to introduce. And today I run as the Chief Executive Officer of FITC, a leading world-class and innovative knowledge solution organization that designs interesting programs for the financial service sector. More interestingly is the fact that I am home with WIMBIZ, being also one of the earliest members of WIMBIZ and also having served extensively on the WIMBIZ Executive Committee. One of the things that we have also done very well at WIMBIZ is equipping women to be the best that they can be. And today's program most certainly is designed to be able to do more of that. We know that WIMBIZ is designed as a catalyst to help to shape the minds of several female leaders. But we also understand that sometimes these female leaders to be, aspiring leaders, are also at some point not maximizing all of their potentials by leveraging the opportunities that develops and builds them up. And we've identified that brand building is one of those opportunities. And so today, we have brought to you some of the best who are veterans in brand building to be able to share experiences and thoughts with regards to how best individuals can build up their personal brand. And so I bring all of these people up to the stage to share insights with them. We're setting the tone by reminding us all that we are all very unique and we'll be learning a lot today around how best to build your personal brand. I'd like to start with Mr. Alder. And Mr. Alder, I would read Mr. Alder's profile to us. And as we share Mr. Alder's profile, please be ready to listen to all of the great things that he brings to the table. I will also at some point introduce another great speaker today, and that is Mrs. Nkiru Olumide Ojo. We'll start with Mr. Alder. No, we're starting with Mr. Olumide Ojo. Please, one slide back. Thank you very much. Mr. Alder is the founder of Alder Consulting, Nigeria's premier creative intelligence organization. It's got offices in Lagos and in London, and is credited with introducing branding as a major discipline to Nigerians, bringing that practice to several organizations, to government, and to nation building as well. And he therefore has consulted on policy, on politics, on business branding at the highest level, locally and internationally. He's also consulted on policy formulation for the federal government of Nigeria. He's done extensive work around branding, communication, education. He's also helped the Foreign Affairs Ministry to be able to shape minds and shape people. Mr. Alder, as we know, is also on the board of several organizations appointed by the federal government to the board of Nigerian Extractive Industry and Transparency Initiative. He's done extensive work that resonates in several organizations today. Mr. Alder, we welcome you, and we would come to you shortly to share insights and knowledge with regards to the subject matter. Thank you for joining us today. We'd also like to invite at this time the profile of Mrs. Nkiru Olumide Ojo. She holds over 2 decades of experience as a strategic brand communication marketing expert. She's built a lot of this across diverse brands in Africa and diverse brands across sectors. She's done fantastic work across financial services, aviation, telecommunications, oil and gas. And in addition to that, shaping minds and building minds even for individuals as well. She's an expert reputation and crisis communication manager, and she currently works in the financial services group in South Africa. She's the founder of the Lighthouse Network, a social impact agency that is founded in 2014. She's focused on marketplace readiness through that platform, helping and building and shaping young people, youths, ladies, men, everyone to be the best that they can be as tomorrow's leader. And she's done this extensively well, impacting over 2,000 youths. We're very proud of the things that she's done with this segment, both in her professional career and of course in her development work. To the extent that we thought that a combination of Mrs. Nkiru Olumide Ojo and Mr. Leke Elder would impact significantly and tremendously on several others today who are joining us. We see the numbers shooting up real high, and we are going to show and share insights as we start the program today. And we would go on if you are ready to come with me. Mr. Elder, I welcome you to the program.
Well, thank you so much.
I thank you very much. I do welcome you. I'd like to start with the most basic questions that comes to the mind of everybody, most people who always want to hear, know, clarify, or understand much more about personal branding. And I'll be starting with you, Mr. Elder, and I'll ask that very simple question. What is personal branding?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me to this panel. I feel overwhelmed because of the gender balance, but it's okay. I think I will survive. If it doesn't work well, I'll call my wife to come and join me. It's very simple. Branding, in essence, is the essence of branding, is to build power, influence, and capital to leverage yourself into self-propagation, elevation, and to do public good. What personal branding does is that it granulizes these things, and then it helps you further to project a vision of yourself. So personal branding is about projection of a vision of yourself. And that's what, in essence, that's what it's all about. Let me stop there.
I like the focus on the vision of yourself. Key buzzword, vision and yourself. Define it and know it. We'll come to you also, Nkiru. Please, what is personal branding?
So firstly, I think is hello Chizo, very lovely, to see you always. And I think thank you also to WIMBIZ for inviting me. I think it would be remiss of me to carry on without saying a big hello to Mr. Elder. I remember very many years ago when I was looking to start out in marketing and communications, my brother-in-law said to me, I don't know what this is. I only know one man, Mr. Leke Elder. Is that what you want to do? Because that's what he does. So very nice to see you, Mr. Elder. Look, I think that I would lean in a bit into some of his definition, but I'd like to start off on the premise to say that you never walk so lightly that you don't leave any footprint. And therefore, to me, personal branding is the conscious and intentional effort to create and influence your target audience perception positively around you. I'm going to add a third piece of it, which is to say that out of all of that is for you to get your desired outcomes. So similarly to how we have corporate brands, and corporate brands typically when they invest in brand building, want a return on that investment. So it's also for you to say, whilst I'm consciously and intentionally creating a certain narrative and perception within my target audience, what sort of return on investment, is it that I seek? I'd like to leave that with you, and I'm sure that we will converse further.
Thank you for bringing that nearer home. Personalizing it again. Intentionally creating, consciously creating your own narrative based on the vision that you have of yourself. Excellently well linked to Mr. Alder's opening, and I think that situates our discussions. Thank you for that. I'd like to throw up another question so that you experts will share more with us. How, therefore, can professionals, enterprise owners, leaders improve on their personal brand? And I'll start with you again, Nkiru, if you can go, please. How should professionals, enterprise owners, and leaders improve on their personal brand?
Look, I think always, my professional recommendation always is to start internally. And, with starting internally is to say to yourself, who am I? Just generally, who am I? What am I good at? What am I terrible at? What do I do effortlessly? What do people compliment me on? Now, it's important for you to have those basics, because what you are then doing is saying, this is who I am, this is what I have to offer, and then I'm now putting myself together to pitch myself to the market. The other thing you need to realize or ask yourself is, who is my target audience? I say to people, you are not called, to serve everyone, not unless you are, a government. But it's also important that you understand who your target audience is, because then you are pitching to your target audience. Before I respond to the rest of that question, it's also important to say what personal branding is it. So that the individuals and the corporates on the call can understand. Personal branding is not posturing. Personal branding is not a headshot, a pictorial headshot. Personal branding is not, speaking with a certain accent intonation. The truth is, personal branding is also pitching yourself in a way that communicates your values and what it is that you have to offer. And therefore, after you've done all of those internal questioning, what you can do as a corporate or an individual is to decide, how do I pitch myself to this audience? How do I pitch my values? How do I pitch my services? How do I position myself? There are, right underneath that, a few other elements, for which you can use to pitch yourself, but I just want to draw through on the last principles I've talked about. Is one, having an internal conversation to say, what is it that I have to offer? Very critical, because personal branding is not just about posturing, it's not just about having a headshot, it's also about understanding what value it is you have to offer, because in the very end, it is a value exchange. So I would stop here, Chizo, and hand over to you. And I'll be on standby to speak further.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll come back to you, Mr. Alder. I would like you to take this discussion further. And there's so much around posturing, positioning, pitching. Why is it important that people do this? Why is it important that individuals, just like organizations, products, why is it important for people to position themselves, to pitch themselves, to posture themselves across to the world based on their target?
Well, first of all, let me clarify something. Again, what personal branding is not. We've identified that it's not posturing and all that stuff. It's also not a letterhead or a logo design or a business card. That's not what branding is all about. I've always advised people, and I always advise our clients to take a strategic approach towards branding. And a lot of these things has to do with the context in which you're operating. For example, within the matrix of a business branding, you still have the CEO branding. So the question then is, what is the product? What are you selling? Some people are selling entertainment. Some people are selling intellect. Some people are selling character. Some people are selling network. Some people are selling concept. So we must define the product. And it's so important to know your products because, again, people posture and do all those things because they are comparing themselves to other people. And they are trying to be like other people instead of conceptually developing themselves and they're discovering who they are and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So that is what I would say. But also I need to let you know that the concept of branding has its own sub-base in the law of demand and supply, the common law of demand and supply that we learned in school. The higher the price, the lower the demand, the higher the demand, the higher the price, and things like that. What branding does, because branding is about, focuses on distinguishing yourself in such a way that the market values you higher and regards you more. And so you have to make yourself different, but not synthetically. It has to be natural. It has to be based on your natural strengths, your skills. There has to be competence. If there is no competence, then there's no branding. The same way that in business branding, I may have a fantastic restaurant that the decor looks fantastic and everything looks okay and glitzy and expensive, but the food is terrible. If the food is terrible, the business is going to fail, no matter how much the decor looks like. In the same way, your personal branding will fail when there's no competence. The critical question you need to keep on asking yourself is, what are you selling? What are you selling? It's not about Instagram. Instagram is just a communication medium. It's not all brands that are marketed, so to speak. There are some brands that are quiet brands, and the value is dependent upon how much silence that they can build. They are mysterious brands, what they call mystic brands and all those things. So it's not about all those things. It's about, first of all, determining your product, what you are selling, what exactly is it, and then whether you are competent at that thing enough to distinguish yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. You know, one of the things that has cut through, and it's both from both of you, what branding is, what branding is not. Ever since we've all started to practice in this area, we've noticed that there is always a lot of confusion within corporations, within individuals about what branding is and what branding is not. I'd like you to dwell on that very quickly, Kiru. Please, in clear words, what branding is not. In clear words, what branding is. Let's highlight on those again so that we can set the tone for what we should then do to build our personal brand excellently well. In your own words, so that we can have great clarification today and greater insights.
Okay. Look, it is the powerful, clear, and positive idea that comes to mind when people think of you. I can repeat that. It's a powerful, clear, and positive idea that comes to mind when people think of you. It is what you stand for, it is your values, it is your ability, and is your action. So it really is, a broadcast message about, your character and your performance. It would tell the audience 3 things about you, who you are, what you do, and what makes you different from the other person. I had said earlier, that branding is not posturing. Branding is not photography. Photography is a subset or a tool that you use to apply branding. Branding it's also not a headshot, or like Mr. Older said, is not a logo. I think that if the pandemic did teach us anything, it's the amount of demand that was made on corporate brands, where people kind of said, forget your logo and forget all these niceties. Tell me the tangible thing that you have to offer. So I think ultimately, branding is about the tangible exchange, that you have with your target audience. And if I can just land with this final example, I think that everyone woke up, to Elon Musk being the one who's sending rockets to space, running Tesla. But I think that wittingly, if you look, deeply into his brand, you would see that for years he had, been in the tech space and had been quietly providing and exchanging value. And therefore, when he arrives at where he is today, it's obviously not difficult for us to pitch him in that docket, identify him, and then obviously not question the value, that he brings. So Chizo, that would be it on what branding is and what branding is not, also with that little example.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We wanted to get the attention of everybody before we take the poll. WIMBIZ, please put up the poll and let's hear what the world is thinking. Our participants are also out there. Would like to hear what they're thinking now and would come back to you, Mr. Alder and NOO. Poll, please. So while we're waiting for absolutely great, the poll is here. So let's just go over the poll. And the very first question is, have you ever thought of yourself as a brand? Now that you've got clarifications from these two great speakers, please answer truthfully. Have you ever thought of yourself as a brand? And Nkiru has explained to us that it is the powerful, clear, and positive idea that comes to mind when people think or talk about you. If you cannot see the poll, then there's a problem with your network. You can exit and come back in because the poll is up there. Thank you very much. The second question, what do you consider to be the most important element of personal branding? Your outward appearance? Is it your social media engagement? Is it your networking? Or is it all of the above? Or none of the above, in fact? So now that we've got a bit of insight, a bit of learning around this, let's answer and see where we are. And we continue with the learning. Thank you. So here we are with the answers. Have you ever thought of yourself as a brand? Fantastic. 85% have thought about themselves as a brand. Equal to Coca-Cola, equal to Virgin Atlantic, equal to, absolutely Rolls-Royce. Great. What do you consider to be the most important element of personal branding? And on this particular question, we have outward appearance, 13%, social media engagement, 4%, and we have, one moment please, all of the above is 57%, networking is 14%, none of the above is 24%. And I do know that at this point, we know better, even as we write our responses, but we would learn better. For those who think that it is all of the above, all are extremely important because your outward experience is also embody what you are supposed to be even before you speak. But from all that we've learned today, we'll go back again to our great faculty and learn much more. Thank you very much. Great. Now that we've learned a few things about personal branding, what it is, what it's not, would like to come to you, Mr. Alder. Could you please share what do you think are some of the brand building tools that professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders can leverage to boost their brands?
Okay. Sorry, before I answer that question, I was listening to the results of your poll and also to, further what Nkiru was saying. I think there's a great misconception about what branding is, because if you're asking people whether they consider themselves brands, and so many people consider themselves brands or think that they are brands or they're going to be brands, then you have a problem. You cannot, there's a difference between branding and being a brand. If you're a brand, then you must have accomplished, you must be recognized, and then you must have reward. If those three things are not there, accomplishment, recognition, and reward, then I don't think you're a brand. And then it means that you must be accomplished in yourself. It's not something you are trying to do, it's something you are trying to maintain. There's a difference between that. The second thing is that people seem to be mistaking concept with communication. Communication of a brand is different from the concept of the brand, which is why you start on the inside. What is the product? Now, let me give you an example. If I manufacture Bonvita, now it's one thing to manufacture Bonvita in the factory. It's another thing to market and to sell Bonvita. Now, in order to sell Bonvita, I can come up with adverts, I can come up with dressing, I can come up with colors and everything, but Bonvita is Bonvita. So the first thing is that Bonvita must exist before I can communicate Bonvita or before I can market Bonvita. Now, most people think that by just putting an empty tin of Bonvita, it's like fake it until you make it. It works in nonsense. It doesn't accomplish anything in branding because you're going to pay a huge price in branding because there's a place for values in branding. Values preserve an organization. We'll talk about that later. Okay, so you need to separate communication from concept. What exactly is the product? First of all, then we look at the communication of the product. It could be through many means. It could be through social media. It could be through publishing. It could be through giving talks. It could be through participating in seminars like this. It could be through advertisements. It could be through appearing on radio, writing in newspapers. There are so many platforms for self-propagation, but there must be something that you are propagating. There must be a thematic direction, a thematic flow, a strategic flow. You must want to be known for something. What exactly is that thing? And I think part of the problem is also people get enterprise greedy or they get adulation greedy, so that you can't really define what they do or what they're all about. They're all over the place. Today they're specialists in blind selling. Tomorrow they're specialists in branding. Tomorrow they're specialists in management consulting. The day after they're specialists in food consulting, and everything. And they're just all over the place and confusing the market. You must be very, very clear about what you do. And one of the most difficult things to define in business is what exactly is this business? What exactly is it what you do? And I can tell you that I've consulted a lot for the corporate world and at the highest levels. And it's also difficult for them to define. So you must be able to sit down, take a notebook and define what exactly it is that you do. What exactly are you all about? What exactly are you selling? What exactly do you want to be known for? It's only after you have done that that you now begin to think of marketing. No product, no marketing. Now, why do you market? Very important. Because if you are good and the people don't know that you are good, you lose money. And if you are not good and the people know that you are good, you lose money as well. So don't wink at the girl in the dark. That's what they used to tell us in law school, that doing some things is like winking at the girl in the dark. You are there winking, blinking your eyes, but nobody knows that you are there. And the girl surely can't tell from across the room that you are winking at her. So that is what my contribution at this stage.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And the strongest thing there is be known for something. Start with yourself. Be consistent. Discover yourself. Find out what you want to be known for. Articulate, design, and agree on what that is. And take it further. Be known for something. We'll come to you, Nkiru. Same question. Would like to hear from you in practical terms. What are some of the tools that today's world can leverage to build their own personal brand after they've articulated their vision, after they are clear about what they would like to be known for? What are your thoughts?
Look, I think that one of the things I would say is to understand and own your unique selling proposition. I feel like this is critical because there's an outbreak of Me Too-ness, in the world. And, you find someone, and I think that Mr. Older did mention it quite briefly, you would find someone who's doing everything, or someone who, suddenly was running an aviation company. Alongside that, I don't know, but the truth is you need to find and own your unique selling proposition. The second thing I'd like to say is to find your people. That is so critical. It's so critical because the secret to the success of any brand positioning is who you are targeting. So you obviously cannot be selling a Bentley to people at the segment of the bottom of the pyramid. So it's really just understanding who your brand is targeted at, so that the positioning to the right segments is completely easy for you. And look, I think that, with corporates, it's quite easy, but I find people who, as individuals, have started off building personal brands, and I'm not sure if they were quite clear on what their intended outcomes were. So there is a lot of output, you are speaking here, doing this, but what is the ultimate goal? And if you were corporate and you were asking, for a budget to do some branding, they're going to say to you, what's my return on investment? So I think after owning your difference, which is your unique selling proposition, it's also finding your people. Who are these people that you are targeting? And it's the last thing of understanding what the outcomes you want are. Don't just stay in the place of output. What is the outcome? What do you want? Are you trying to influence because as an individual, ultimately you want to perhaps go into politics, and therefore these are the elements, for your positioning? Are you trying to do this because you ultimately want to become an entrepreneur in a particular sector? And this is so. What's your reason? What's your why? I think this is so critical, because one of the challenges I find with branding is because the entry barrier is low, people forget that there also is a psychology to it. And it's that simple psychology of selling ideas, because what you have then become is you are an idea, and there is a psychology to pitching, there's a psychology to positioning, there's a psychology to connecting to your target audience. I think this would be it at this time, Chizo.
Thank you very much. So we've spoken about, in this journey to build your personal brand, you must be able to create your unique selling proposition based on your vision and your story, which means what is the value you are bringing to the table? Because you must be able to embody value, which is what people would connect to, which is what people will take out of you, which is what people will talk about you when you are not in the room, which is what people will think about when they are thinking about you as an idea. Now, in addition to that, we've also spoken about finding your audience. You must be clear about your audience, who is the persons or individuals or organizations or market segments you want to connect to.
Correct.
If, for instance, you're a young professional in an organization, you want to connect with your team members, you want to also be able to connect with the organization, the executives. You want to be able to add value in a way that you are rated as high-performing, value-driven, and so you also want to be able to define that space. You want to also be able to connect with your professional bodies, your professional space. So if you're a data analyst and you are not even known, or you're not adding value, or you're not connected with your professional space, you are not finding your audience. So having also spoken around this, now that we are clear that people must be deliberate about defining their audience and establishing a connection with that audience, then do you think is the role for digital media in today's world in communicating that personality and value that you bring? And what sort of digital media tools are people able to leverage? And I say digital because in the world of today, rather than stand on the mountaintop and speak to a few under the valley, rather than take a whole page of the newspaper, and rather than sit on CNN to tell us about your value and target, there must be other ways that are easy to adapt and high on impact and wider in reach. Please share with us so that people can connect with that and leverage.
Right.
Is for you, yes.
That's fine, Chizo, thanks. Look, I think that, no better time, is there than to build a brand than now. I say so because digital has become such an enabler. And, whilst digital is an enabler, it's important to say that, it's not an end in itself. So what digital is to, obviously what an enabler does is to stimulate, and help, your brand get faster to your audience, your target audience. And therefore there is a place for a choice of channels. And let's step back. There's a place for the strategy. And the strategy is, how do I want to use this digital channel? And then when you've decided how you want to use it, and a strategy can be, I simply want to do a push and perhaps a pull approach. So this is me, I want to push out who I am, the value that I offer, and ultimately what I want to use it for is to stimulate demand, which is then the pull, approach for the brand. So that's on a basic level. And then we have the choice of channels. And obviously, depending completely on who you are. So let's decide that you are someone with political ambitions who wants to be a senator in another 4 years or whatever it is that you are aiming for. So it's sitting down and saying, even if I'm using the very basic push and pull approach, where is my target audience found? Are they people on digital? What types of digital platforms, are they at? And I think that one of the oversights people typically are making, at this time is to think that, social media is everything. Social media is a lot of things, very powerful channel, but it also isn't everything. And I say so because in choosing, channels, there's so many, little things they can do. And I'm just going to say, I'm trying to seek a political office. People try to reach me all the time. Have I thought about building a chatbot on my website that is called Nkiru Olumide Ojo, or NOO? And when people come onto my website, it is responding fully to any frequently asked questions, that you may have. Obviously, we then dovetail into our regular social media platforms, which provide a large audience. And for me as an individual, I've talked about the strategy and I'm discussing the channels now, is also what do I want to do? Is my target audience, because I'm going to be a politician, cuts across the top of the pyramid to the bottom of the pyramid. There is then the place, and this is why I say to people, you can build a personal brand and that's great, but it's also important to get insights, from the professionals. And it is, with that target audience, is also unpacking who they are, how do they consume media, what channels can you reach them on? And then you decide, maybe for the people at the top of the pyramid, I'll probably do a podcast because they have more time, they're keen on news, and therefore I can put out, weekly or whatever podcast that tell my story. And then it's coming to the bottom of the pyramid to say, these people are probably even people who use feature phones. And therefore, the only way I can reach them might be through push messages. But the message I want to leave with you is, one, digital is an enabler. It's not an end in itself. Two, you have to have a strategy. That way you're not shooting and praying. And I think the third thing is you've got to choose your channels according to the target audience that you are targeting. And also it's important to understand how the target audience consumes this digital platform that you're talking about. I'll hand over to you now, Chizo.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nkiru. And I'll come to you, Mr. Alder, on that. Speaking channels. What are the other kind of channels that you think that people can leverage given today's reality? What are your thoughts around that?
The first thing is that, I like to deal with fundamentals first before we go to particularities. And there's a fundamental that we have to agree on, that there are two types of audiences that you're going to have. The first is what you call the enterprise public, and the second is what you call, to use a basic terminology, your customers. Let me illustrate what the two are. If I take a newspaper and I flip it open and I just keep on flipping through the adverts and everything, some adverts will catch my attention, some adverts will not catch my attention, some I will just brush over, some I will pay particular attention to. Now, I may not buy anything from the company that is advertising, but I'm interested in that product or in that company. So to that extent, I'm an enterprise public to that corporation or to that enterprise. I am interested in what they are doing. Now, I may not be a customer, but I'm critical. Now, there are some other people who will look at the same adverts, and when they look at the adverts, they would decide to make a call or to go to the website or to visit social media and say, okay, I want to buy something. Those are the customers. Now, how does this relate to personal branding if you're a professional? Who is your enterprise public? Who is your customer? If you work in a corporation, you're a professional, for example, your customer will be your direct boss, the person that is going to make evaluation of you, who is going to determine your scorecard, who is going to determine whether you are promoted or not. And your enterprise public will be management in general. What they think about you matters. If you're in politics, for example, your enterprise public will be all the people that are making noise on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever, whereas your customers will be those who are going to vote for you, the people in your constituency. So it's important that when you are directing your message and your communication, that you know what to say to who, because you see, the psychological profiling of the customers matter. Now, this is what I found out about people on social media, and I'm going to concentrate on, digital is very wide. It can be social media, it can be something as basic as website, it can be LinkedIn, it can be certain types of phone. It depends on how you want, where your customers are. And that's why I said that it is important for you to know your customers and know who your enterprise public is. Where the customers are is where you domicile your budgets. For example, you don't go advertising on television if the people are not there. If they're on radio, you put your budget on radio. So, but what I found happens? People get carried away on social media, and the advantage of social media is very simple. It is measurable. There's a metric system. It is cost effective. And there's the repeat publication matrix that is attached to it. Other people can help you publish, and you can get the results. You can know for definite whether you are reaching your target audience or not. And if it's not working, you can advertise and get your message out there. So the metric system is what makes social media very, very powerful, and also because it's cheap. Also because it can also stay for far longer than in a newspaper. In a newspaper, for example, you are just renting a space for a day. And after you rented the space for a day, they give it to the next person the next day. In social media, you can control that. You can have repeats. You can do whatever you like, and everything. But what I notice is that people cancel themselves on social media. So here you are trying to project yourself as a serious consultant. And the next thing, you are posting sexy pictures. So the people of course, you get a lot of following. You get a lot of interest in the sexiness of the picture. But you lose the focus of your corporation. You don't get to sell your company. And so you cancel yourself in terms of definition. People get confused as to what you are. So when they think about you, they're thinking, oh, sexy or consultant. They don't know which is which. And so you cancel yourself. So you need to get on social, like Nkiru said, you need to be more strategic. You need to be focused. You need to define your audience, know your enterprise public, know who your customers are, know what you are selling, and then pitch your things to them. And then you have to resist the temptation to try and be like other people or to try and trend and to do what other people are trending and everything. For example, there are some people that shouldn't be discussing politics on social media. There are people that shouldn't be discussing entertainment because it confuses the people. So be focused, be strategic. You may have a personal account, or you may decide to have a business account or an enterprise account, whatever. Just be focused and be strategic in what you are doing. And then it's easier for you to leverage that thing, because it's when it all comes together. That is the power of branding. When your website comes together with your social media, which comes together with your letterhead, which comes together with your proposal, which comes together with your pitch, which comes together with your publishing, which comes together with your speakings, which comes together with your seminars, and which comes together with your identity and your dressing and your speeches and all those things. When all those things come together, then you become powerful and galvanized, and everything that you are doing begins to pitch towards a definitive stratagem, which people can see that this is a serious individual. Let's do business with this person, because that is very critical. Brand building is about building trust. If the people don't trust you, there is no brand. Over to you, Nkiru.
Thank you very much for that. And taking it out from there, where do you think is the place for appearance? And this question is for you, Nkiru. So we know how organizations and corporations invest a whole lot of money to look good. Coca-Cola pays attention to its logo and the execution of its logo. Organizations pay attention to even their letterheads and their call cards to ensure that it expresses well. Just so that we are also clear, so when we say to people, branding, it's not about a beautiful headshot. Where is the place for appearance? Because people must also make investments that make them look good. So Mr. Alder has spoken extensively about miscommunicating on social media platforms. But then you also see, in addition to that, you come into, for instance, as basic as it is, people who have 5 or 6 social media accounts, including Zoom that we are on now. You find a profile picture that comes up and you're not sure if the person has just quickly taken something while sitting in the kitchen or in the worst lit environment. And yet these are people who want to communicate powerful brands. People Also sometimes distracted when they are speaking to this same audience. So you speak like you're in the marketplace where you're speaking to a particular audience that you have already defined. So where is the place for appearance in totality in building personal brand?
Look, there's a huge place, for it. And when I speak a lot in female circles, I say to people, you may be powerless, about a lot of things. You may be powerless about, where you work, where you've been pitched, but you mustn't be powerless, about how you choose to show up. That is one thing you have a right to. And therefore, you should go back to say, how do I want to show up? I often give this example, and I do know that things have changed. It's completely dependent on the audience. Back to that again. So personality, imagery is so critical. And I often use Lady Gaga as an example. I say to people, Lady Gaga is quite clear that she's not targeting me. She's quite clear that she's targeting people who have a little quirky side. And it comes through in the way that she dresses, in the music that she provides, in the color that she uses. She always has this malevolent look where she has, two horns, and all of those sorts of things. So that is what communicates to her target audience. So I think for you is going back to the drawing board to say, what personality am I trying to communicate? And therefore what imagery? And, it might be as little as, down to the choice of color. And I'm going to use the financial services sector. And this is probably why for so long, they dress in a certain manner. I feel like anyone who wants to give you money, wants some establishment of trust. And I think Mr. Alder mentioned trust. And I don't know that he's going to very easily hand you his money if you look disheveled. He's going to think, but you don't take yourself seriously. Why should I take you seriously enough to provide you with my money? Therefore, I say to people, dress up and have an outlook in that manner that causes you to be taken seriously. And I will illustrate only with a brand, and obviously a brand that I worked on, for so many years. Richard Branson is at all, in many ways, a seriously informal person. But the truth is, he shows up in a way that makes you take him seriously enough to get on his flight. And the thing about, a flight is, it's quite high risk. That is a plane you are flying. But the safety of a Virgin flight is never in question because he demonstrates in lots of ways that he can be trusted. So I think for each one of us, it's to be sure about what it is you want to communicate. I listened when Mr. Alder made the illustration, about, the pitching as sexy. The truth is, you must be careful not to confuse your audience. And I said to people, there's just so many Instagram models. You've got to think about what you want to be. If you want to be an Instagram model, that's okay. But if you want to be a professional who is, selling thoughts, ideas, or even selling a training package, then you've got to pitch as such. And what does that mean? It means that when you are using social media, you'll be conscious that everything communicates. I find people sometimes when I find them in some blog sites and the comments they have made, I'm thinking, what is this you? Why is there a dissonance between who it is you say you are and what it is, you're doing? So I think the point I'd like to leave with us is everything communicates, including how you look. You have a right to choose how you show up. And most importantly, take care that when you show up, you communicate your personality, the imagery that communicates where you are going to, and most importantly, that you build trust with your target audience. I'd leave that with you, Chizo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to come to you, Mr. Alder.
Yes.
There is one critical thing that has helped powerful people build and shape their stories, and that's elevator pitch. How would you be able to explain to our audience today what elevator pitch is and how they can leverage it to articulate their personal brand statement? Kindly clarify with ingredients as much as you are able to.
Okay, that's a very wide question. But first of all, let me add something to what Nkiru said. I think it's very important that people understand the difference between dressing and strategic dressing. that you look nice doesn't mean that you are strategically dressing to propagate your brand or your business. It's not about niceness. If you are going to pitch to a corporation, a very serious corporation, chances are that they may not take you seriously if you wear certain clothes, or if you appear in traditional or any of those things. It depends. If your audience is young, chances are that they may prefer you in jeans, to necktie or bow tie or something. It depends. I think it's very important. But coming back to what you were talking about, I think it's important that people sit down and take care of the spiritual dimensioning of their organization, of their brand. What do I mean by spiritual dimensioning? What is the idea of your brand? Number one. Number two, what is the vision? Number three, what is the mission? Number four, what are the values? Number five, what is the culture? And number six, how do you intend to communicate? I think you need to take care of these things and properly define them. My experience with working with SMEs in particular and young entrepreneurs is that they get lost in trying to cut and paste. So they see something which sounds nice on another person or another company, they just carry it and cut it and try to fit it by force into what is theirs. And that creates a problem. And number two, there is no relational integrity between all these elements of the spiritual dimension of the organization. You talk about one vision, which has no relationship with your mission, which has no relationship with your values, which has no relationship with your culture, it has no relationship with your communication, even the way you are speaking. Like you said, you see some people and they say some things, the context troubles you. They open their mouth and it troubles you. You can't forget that what you are trying to do is that you are trying to convince someone to believe in you. And one of the things that you need to note about business is that people hardly make any investment in a business idea. They make investment in the person presenting the business idea. In other words, no matter how fantastic the business idea is, if the person that is going to drive it is grade B, chances are that the investors are going to lose their money. And the investor is looking for things like that. So when you're making your pitches and all those things, you have to project that you know what you're talking about, that you know your value, you know your business, you know your product, you know your markets, you know all those things, so that when you pitch, you build confidence and self-esteem, and someone doesn't feel that it's going to lose money when they invest in you, because people are investing in you at the beginning. That's what they are doing. They're investing in you because your business may not make any profit for the first 3 years, even for the first 4 years or 5 years. Amazingly lost money for a long time. I think about 10 years before I began to make profit and everything. But the people invested in the person called Jeff Bezos, and it wasn't a bad idea as it turned out to be. So can I invest in you is what should be at the back of your mind. So the way you talk, the way you appear, the way you refer to people, the way you reference people, your inability to even know the members of the panel or the people you are talking to, or you go for an interview and you are trying to get money from someone and you don't know anything about the company and you are guesstimating and all sorts of things, it doesn't show confidence. You need to do your own work very, 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 very well. Because when you do your own work, then you become someone that someone can become investable. Okay, so that's what I have to say at this time, Chizo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our participants would like you to load the question and answer session with questions. It's not every day that you have the privilege of two great personalities teaching personal branding. So while I come to you, Nkiru, but please drop those questions. Yeah, I see them coming. On the questions and answer box, please. Because there are so much going on in the chat box. You don't want us to lose our questions as they sit in the chat box. Questions and answers box. Thank you. Now, one of the ways, Nkiru, also that people are able to shape their thoughts very quickly, leveraging the elevator pitch, is to be able to say in 30 seconds what they are about. So we have had this 1 hour of learning. How do you think that people are able to articulate in those order of who you are, what you are selling, what value you are bringing to the table, and why should I buy you, in quote, buy you whether it's the product you sell, buy you whether it's the consulting that you are offering, buy you whether it's the individual that you embody that brings value to the team dynamics, to the organization you work in, to everything that you do. How do you teach people to be able to shape their thoughts in 30 seconds? Just so that you never can tell, they walk into that lift and they are looking at Dangote and they have all the opportunity to say one or two things about them.
I think that I'm going to keep it simple, and even more so because you need just 30 seconds to put forward the speech. And therefore, what you should be thinking about is what problem you are solving. That's so critical. And I suppose also just understanding that, life is busy, a lot is going on for whoever it is you've met. But as soon as you can tell them what problem you are solving, then you have their attention. So whatever you are pitching, it's important to put forward what problem you are solving. And if you can add to that, just very quickly chip in your unique selling proposition. The reason I say that is there are 7 billion of us in the world. There has to be something that makes you different. And therefore, it's important to pitch, one, the problem you're solving. Two, very importantly, what makes you different, what your unique selling proposition is. Chizo, may I please just lean in, and only because I saw something, on the chatbot I wanted to respond to. I just wanted to say to us that the thing we've got to know about personal branding is that a few people are quite clever and have had the foresight to curate the message they would like to leave with you. I saw the comment that someone made about Sir Richard Branson, and I can assure you that he has carefully curated I've got a lot on my mind, I'm constantly thinking, I'm a thinking entrepreneur, and so he comes out in that manner that some people may term disheveled. Another person, that I have found, and a lot of times I say to myself, did this happen? Did she carefully curate it? Is our very revered and cherished Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Look, I think that when she arrived on the international scene, and I think first it may have been the World Bank, it is arriving in African outfits. I feel like that was a statement to say, you know what, guys? I'm someone who is my own person. I'm someone who's not deterred or, wanting to be the next person. And believe it or not, that was, a stretch, in creating a personal brand. And we have now come to accept her that she is her own person. She's unique, not waiting to be pushed, into French suits or anything. So I think the point is we've got to be deliberate, we've got to think far ahead, and we've got to think about what return, we want out of all of the outputs that we're putting out. Thanks, Chizo. Chizo, you are mute. It's happened to you, the MC.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, so just to wrap up on that, people who are very great about telling their stories are deliberate and intentional about it. Time and pen their thoughts, pen their vision about themselves, pen their target audience, pen the value they are bringing to their target audience, like you said, and they are also able to read it to themselves so that even in practicing, you can say that about yourself, even if anybody wakes you up. And that way, you are able to find the right words, you're able to create your own story, you are able to communicate that at every point in time. And it takes us back to what Mr. Alder said about design. You have to design that. You have to be deliberate about designing it from who you are, from what your story is, based on your vision, what you want the world to know about you, and speak to it all the time. Fantastic. At this time, I must say, very great learning. We are so delighted to have you all. We would like to go into the questions and answers and just throw out some of those questions that have been coming to either of you. I'd like to start with one. And this goes to you, Mr. Alder. It says, question from Yemisi Ayeni. How important is authenticity in personal branding? Branding often seems to be more about packaging and the external than about the contents and the internal. though it's a panelist thought, but please share what is the role, how important is authenticity in personal branding? Mr. Alder, please take that for us. Thank you.
Okay, one of the things that people, we can't go too much into technicality at this stage because I'm not talking to consultants. But one of the things that you need to learn is that there are what you call brand personalities, and there are also what you call brand values. Brand values are the things that preserve the brand and help the brand to propagate itself. It could be things like integrity, honesty, hard work, resilience, whatever. You define all those values which are going to define you and are going to help you propagate yourself. But there's also personality. I think what people are paying attention to more is personality rather than values. Authenticity is critical because without authenticity, you are selling a lie. And I keep on telling you that in branding, you don't get away with lies. You can only fool some of the people some of the time. You can't fool all the people all of the time. And if you study the history of great brands, they don't sell shallowness. They don't sell nonsense. They don't sell lies. They sell true products. But what is most important is that they are true to themselves. So for example, Nkiru has cited Richard Branson. He is true to himself. Don't be fooled by all that jumping out of the plane and a shaggy beard and don't be fooled by all that. Behind all that is a very, very intelligent system. That is, you don't run an airline without intelligence and without hardworking and dedicated system. It's not possible. You are going to have crashes. So don't be fooled by all those things. To him, he's just a marketer and he recognizes his role as a marketer. So why is authenticity important? Because if you're not authentic, then the people find out you're going to pay a price. And it's easy to be yourself. That's why if you stop copying other people, you're not going to be a great person or you're not going to be the head of the financial institution because you have your headgear like Okonjo-Iweala. She is sound first. Every other thing is an expression of that soundness. And she can only be like that because she's very sure of herself. You don't show up as an African in an international institution unless you're very sure of yourself. She is sure of herself. And if you look at her pedigree, her intelligence, I've had the privilege of working with her and consulting for her when she was minister in Nigeria. She's one of the most intelligent beings that you can imagine. And when you talk to her, you better know your onions. So you got to be authentic. You got to be yourself. Stop trying to be like other people. The only thing you can be is to be a better version of yourself, not try to be another person because it's going to cost you a lot of money. And anyway, if you lose your concept, because concept is what is powerful. The most powerful brands have their own unique concept. Even the most powerful nations have their own unique concepts. If you try to be like other people, you're going to be, look, you are not Walmart because you reduce the price of goods. There's a philosophy that is guiding Walmart. So what is your philosophy? You have to define these things. You have to do the heavy work because until you can afford expensive consultants who can help you do all these things, you have to do them yourself, which was why I told you, write your vision, write your mission, write your values, write your culture, write your communication system and everything. Do all these things. You may not get it perfectly, but you keep on perfecting it as you go along. So is it important to be authentic? Yes. Will you rather buy something that isn't authentic? Put yourself in the customer's shoes. Over to you, Chizo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nkiru, this question is for you. What tips can you give to professionals who are battling to promote themselves, but are shy about being considered as overdoing it? What's your tip to professionals who would like to promote themselves, but they are shy of being described about overdoing it? Thank you.
Thank you, Chizo. And I suppose it's easy for me to respond to that. Only because, I once used to be in the stage or in the phase where I thought, all this is overdoing. Look, I think that maybe the first thing is to repeat that statement. And I suppose it is calling it storytelling. How do you tell your story? I'd like to say to you that any corporate is about storytelling and knowing your numbers. And even with the numbers, you find people who tell stories, you know, that reflect the numbers. So I think for you is changing the mindset that you are, because maybe that's what debars us, you know, from as women, as telling our stories. I'll give you two quick examples, really quick examples. I was sitting on an ESCO and I was listening to two people, a guy and a girl, and they were asked to present their monthly performance review. And I listened to the guy talked about, you know, and they said to him, what's in your pipeline? He says, you know, yesterday my classmate who went to Wits University, is now the chief executive of, as an example, Glasso. So I saw him and he said to me not to worry, he's going to give me 400 million rands next week. Now the girl comes and then she says, I've actually got only 10 million rands in my portfolio. Now, note that the guy has nothing actual in his pipeline. The girl has 10 or 5 or whatever. But the guy has already told you in that little story, I went to one of the A-list schools in South Africa. He's told you that, number one. He said to you, my classmates are big shots. So he's also positioned himself. And then finally, even if he doesn't tell you the money, even if he doesn't have the money, he tells you some big amount is coming to him. And ladies, I feel like what you should do is not think about it in terms of self-promotion, because maybe that's where we have the challenge. Think about it as telling your story. And with every storytelling, there are 3 pieces. It is 1, the tonality. It is 2, the timing. And it is 3, the content. I implore everyone who's someone in a corporate who is trying to get ahead in her career ladder to please write what her story is. So think about what your story is and think about the timing. When do I use it? 2, the tonality. How do I pitch it forward? And obviously is what I have talked about before, which is the content. And remember, and if you are being your authentic self, you would know, because yourself will check you when you know you are now going beyond. But it is not self-promotion, it is storytelling, girls. Please go out there and tell your story. Thanks.
Fantastic. Great comment around that. Great way to put it. Tell your story. Walk your talk. Toot your horn, like we say in WIMBIZ. Thank you. All right. There's another question for you, and we are bringing that question to you, Mr. Alder. How do I, as an enterprise owner, be able to, how do I, as an enterprise owner, be able to distinguish my personal brand and the brand of the organization that I promote? As an enterprise owner and founder of a business, how do I distinguish between my personal brand and the brand that of the business I'm trying to promote? Thank you.
Okay, very simple. This is a problem with a lot of young enterprises. They don't have structure. They don't build structure. And the money that they should have used to build structure, what do I mean by structure? Getting the appropriate staff, having an organogram, growing organically sometimes synthetically, but growing, having a proper business structure. It may be as simple as having a secretary at the beginning, and you begin to populate your organogram as you go along. Now, when you have that structure, it's easy to distinguish you from your business. But when you are so structured, then you are the sole person marketing the business, you are the CEO of the business, you are everything to that business. At that stage, your brand is indistinguishable from that of your business. But the more structure you have, the more it is easy for you to propagate yourself and begin to detach yourself from the business. But note that whatever you do, as long as you identify with that business, it's going to affect that business, especially if that business bears your name. There's nothing like, oh, I'm just doing my thing. It has nothing to do with the business. It does. So it's difficult to do that. But what I'll advise you to do is to build structure. It's expensive. It is painful sometimes. But if you don't do it, at some point, you are going to need it. I have a lot of friends in the business world who refuse to build structure. And they were going for big business deals. Of course, nobody is going to give you a big business if there's no structure, because nobody wants to risk their money. You may take their money and run to the village and marry a second wife or a third wife, and everything. So there's always that fear, or that anything can happen to you and the business is gone and their money is gone. So sometimes what they would now need to do is that they will call me and say, let's do this together. Now, that is money that you don't need to share, all because you don't have structure. So build structure. You cannot run an enterprise that is 9-story store with the foundation of a bungalow. Dig deep, build structures, do the things that the big businesses do. Now, am I saying you should build suddenly overnight? No, that's not what I'm saying. You have to be mindful of your expenses. You have to be mindful of what you are doing, but you have to have a vision. Where 2 or 3 are gathered together is not a vision. If you want to become a big corporation, you have to have a big vision of a big corporation. So at least the least you can do today is to sit down and take a pencil and a piece of paper and try and draw out an organogram and say, okay, this is me up here. This is my management team. This is head of HR. This is head of finance. This is head of product marketing. This is head of products. And at least draw something out. Until you do that, you're not going to find it easy to distinguish yourself from the business. That's what I have to say about that. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps very well. And there's another question that is so similar to that, so we may just take it further, just like you have said. You spoke a lot about targets and audience. So for people like me who have a personal audience from my business, and that is the question. So what do I do when I want to reach both my personal audience in my own personal space and social life and the business audience in my own business that I also run, seeing that both are important to me?
I don't know, you are confusing the market. You have to make up your mind what you really want to do, because I'm even confused about what the business is. What is it that you do in your personal space and all that? So what does that mean? This is one lesson that entrepreneurs need to learn. Your life is bound up in that business that you are building. If it succeeds, you succeed. It's going to take you places. It's going to on places unimaginable. So stop confusing the market. I just don't get it. Unless your corporation grows to the point in which it has a separate identity. For example, whoever owns Coca-Cola, the brand is strong enough to stand on its own. So we don't get confused. I mean, we know the Jeff Bezos family, but we know Amazon. So I'm just confused. I think you need to make, because see, one of the things you need to learn to do is so critical. It's not to be enterprise greedy. You want to do too many things at the same time, and you're not going to succeed at all. So make up your mind why you want to domicile your resources and your energy, and make up your mind what the market really wants. What do you really, really want to do? What do you find easy? What do you find pleasurable? What is it that drives you? What do you want to achieve? What is your vision of success? Those are the kind of questions you need to ask yourself. But if you get enterprise greedy, today you are this, tomorrow you are that. One day you go to a company, you say you are selling blinds. The next day you say it's in your personal capacity. The next day you go to the same company and say you are pitching for food supply, but this is your corporate capacity. You confuse the market. If I'm on the other side of the table, I'll never give you any business.
Thank you. Please keep the questions coming. We've got a few more minutes to be able to take questions. We are ready for you today because more learning comes from the questions. Nkiru, this one is for you. I am currently an employee and I often help my friends who are entrepreneurs with their business strategies. But now I want to take things more seriously and pivot to becoming a director in companies. How do I project myself out there to attract board interviews without jeopardizing my current job?
I mean, I take this question to mean I work in a corporate. I would like to build a personal brand away from the corporate, correct?
The question is, I work in a corporate today, and I want to be able to attract opportunities to sit on the board of many companies. How do I build my profile so that board and companies can find me attractive and appoint me into their boards?
Right. Look, I think it's just back to the principles, and the principles are, who are you targeting? What sectors are you targeting? You'd like to get onto a board. A board has different sectors and different segments. What area are you interested in? Are you interested in reward, people and culture, compliance? What area? Now, this question is important because you then say to yourself, how do I put myself forward? Look, I mean, I say to us that, and I think it's also the advent of social media that makes us feel like, even though it's a channel, it is everything and be it all. It actually isn't. For all you know, your audience may not, and just think about it. Someone who is recommending, thinking about electing people on board, where is he at, or where is she at? And then you say to yourself, how can I find her? It might be simply joining an association. And in that association, it may be volunteering. It may be, writing positioning papers, just pitching yourself as a thought leader in that area. Let's decide is compliance that you have and identify that you would like to play. So once you've done those basics, there also is the place of, looking out to see where there are applications, for people to come on board. And if you belong to these associations, you would find that there are institutes that typically put out applications, and then you apply, for these things. I would like to say to us, at this juncture, and very critically so, I know that we spent some time, earlier talking about what personal branding is not, and I'm going to repeat it again. Personal branding is not posturing. I'm finding that people are missing the point that whatever brand promise you make, right? The true taste of it is when the experience aligns. Otherwise, you are fake. That's just the truth. And I'm going to give a personal example. I was trying to reach someone who had pitched and postured, on social for a particular solution. You try through the channels, the person has put out, you can't find the person responds and tells me, I do a 9-to-5 job. So I'm thinking, but what do I care? Mr. Alder just talked about setting up the right systems and structure. So if you want to do the business and you are pitching and posturing, and nearly getting us all blind with your posturing, then you must at least set up a system and a structure that can make sure all the talk you are doing aligns with your experience so that it is not broken and you are not decided to be a phony person. So Chizo, that's it. I hope that was helpful to the person and that my addition was useful as well.
Super helpful there. And
Chizo, I'm so sorry.
Yes, please add to that. Yes, if you want to
add to that, because you said something very important. And then I saw somebody post a question about what about Dangote? How do you want to compare yourself to a conglomerate? I mean, how? The level of capital that the man is working with, the level of structure that he has, the level of expertise that is available, you don't have it. So one rule I'd like to put on the table, don't diversify until you're consolidated. Don't diversify until you're consolidated. This is not about multiple streams of income and people talk about. This is about you building a business. And the rules governing business are completely different from those rules. What we are talking about, multiple streams of income and all those things are things like personal investments. When it comes to brand building, people must know you for something. So stop comparing yourself to Dangote until you've grown to Dangote's strength. When you have a structure, when you have a strength, when you have his finance, then you can afford to go into sugar and energy and all those things that he does. So it's so important. Talking about brand promises, I just want to, add to what Nkiru has said, because she said something very important. Brand promises is a very powerful tool. And there are two levels of promises. If you say you manufacture, say, an analgesic, say Panadol, there is a generic promise in saying that you have Panadol. What do I mean? The moment you say you have an analgesic, I expect your product to cure headache and to cure pains and things like that. If your Panadol or your analgesic doesn't cure headache or doesn't cure pain, then there's something wrong, your promise fails, and you're going to pay a huge price for that. Now, the second level of promise is when you now advertise and you say Panadol cures headache fast. The moment you say fast, it means that you are going from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. In other words, if the generic analgesic, if it cures headache in 5 minutes, your Panadol or your analgesic must cure headache in 1 minute. If it doesn't cure that headache in 1 minute, then you've lied. And you can't fool the people. The market may seem like nobody in particular, and there are a lot of bodies out there, But word soon gets around and you'll be out of business in no time, because somebody that you cheated from your brand promise is going to tell somebody and say, don't mind them, that thing doesn't work. She's just lying, or that company is just lying. And what gets around so fast, especially in this day of social media, and the internet never forgets. They will never forget the promise that you made, that your analgesic kills headache fast. So you have to be mindful of that, but please don't diversify until you consolidate it. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much for that. And Nkiru, I'm coming to you right now. So somebody has asked another question. Being consistent on the social and digital media to tell our story is like waking up to go to the gym in the morning. For those who are successful with always telling their stories positively on those platforms, how do you do it? What tips can we learn so that we can be that way as well?
Right. Look, I think if I was to draw from my personal experience, I just obviously like writing, like talking. I'm quite passionate and like to champion the cause of the working girl. So I think, obviously, I started out social media playing and just expressing myself. And then things, took an advanced turn. But if I were to look back and say, what has made the difference, I think, and I'm not sure if it was, I think Mr. Older spoke about authenticity. I think that authenticity is the premise, for growth. Is the premise for, stimulating the demand that you seek. And I lean on authenticity because when you are showing your real and your true self, there will be people who come practically to say, actually, I don't like her. And that's fine, because you are not, I say so, you are not for everyone. You should have a niche and a target audience and people, who can connect to you. So I think it's show up authentic, show up in an authentic manner. I also think it's show up consistently. I mean, I podcast and there are days where I'm so tired. I'm just so tired. But I said to myself, there may be one or two people who still listen. I better just put it out. And, true to word, people would come through to say, oh, that was helpful. But I think that when we think about the most successful brands, and we can think about a corporate brand, and we can think about an individual brand. When we think about Oprah Winfrey as an individual brand, we can tell in the morning, afternoon, evening, when you think about Oprah, you would think about storytelling. Now, whether it's the show that she had put to death, or is the interviews that she does, or is the soul food podcast, it is always about stories. She's quite consistent. I think that if you think about corporate brands, and not even sure what brand to use now, you would think about, unless you even just use Elon Musk, again, he's back to, that's a personal brand as well. You would see the consistency, even when you read his bio from University of Pretoria before he went to Canada, he was always fiddling, always trying to invent something, always. So the true test of it is one, authenticity, and the second is consistency. Show up, even when you're tired, show up. Even when you're exhausted, show up. Just keep showing up.
Great. Awesome. We've got this question, and this one goes to you, Mr. Alder. And it says, I work in the corporate world. Is it possible for me to build my personal brand, even though I work for other people? I work in a corporate organization. Is it possible for me to build my personal brand outside of even though I work for other people?
Oh, of course. Remember that the essence of branding, one of the things about branding is being able to distinguish yourself, and there has to be distinction. And that is very critical. I can't go into it now, but I will have taught you how to explore the fundamentals that undergird the law of demand and supply. For example, the first law says that the first assumption says that the standard commodity is offered by numerous sellers to numerous buyers. So what you do is that you uncommoditize yourself. You have to make yourself distinct. But it's very important, and I need to drop this in at this stage, that you have what you call a vision of success. And the image of success for you is very important. What is your vision of success? When I was very, very young, when I was in primary school, my vision of success was to live in a very wonderful apartment, and wear jeans, and even without shoes sometimes, and people will come to me and ask for me to consult for them, and I would solve difficult problems for them on a whiteboard, and things like that. That was my vision of success. And I worked very hard to get to that point in which I was free to wear jeans. What is your vision of success? It's important. Now you are going to get promoted. You need to impress certain people within that system. So you must be competent. You must be able to work unsupervised. You must be able to be trusted with things, and people can send you out to troubleshoot on matters and solve equations. And you must have vast industry, company-wide experience. Now you have to be deliberate about those things. Ask for certain difficult postings. Ask to learn, attend courses, all those things, and then dress according to the vision of where you are going. If you want to become a general manager, dress like a general manager. If you want to become a CEO, dress like a CEO, talk like a CEO, think like a CEO. Don't blabber with your mouth. Don't say whatever comes to your mouth. Don't have verbal diarrhea, because it's not how many times you talk, it's how much intelligence that is in what you say that matters. So yes, you can have yourself branded within your organization. You can brand yourself within your organization. All you need to do is to be distinct. And by the way, little things matter. Please don't have a dirty car, and it speaks badly. If there's a dent on your car, please repair it, because it says a lot about you. Don't have dirty shoes. Groom yourself. Let people know that you care about little things. Now, we've spoken a lot about these things that it's not really the essence of branding, but it's a communication of something, And one of the most important things that you can do is to be able to think in an orderly manner. Because there are a lot of people that talk and can't think in an orderly manner. Everything is disjointed. This is jumping from there and that is jumping from there. They can't make a logical progression, and they can't even do a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that is logical in its consistency, and therefore people are confused. And then please, another thing in branding yourself within your corporation, don't write letters with typographical errors, and don't write letters that are addressed to wrong people, and don't wrongly address people. If you want to make way in life, know how to address people. These are little things that you can put in place. But the most important thing is that you are competent at what you do, because you can dress all you like, talk grammar all you like, write letters correctly all you like. If you are not competent in what you are doing, then you are not branded. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you very much. That's a great one. Okay, I will bring this one to you, Nkiru. What is the place of emotional intelligence in personal branding? What is the place of emotional intelligence in personal branding?
So there's a huge role, for EI in personal branding, because really EI is just about learning how to manage your emotions, and learning also how to manage the emotions of others around you, obviously to a desired outcome. And therefore, if you do have, the right persona, have put yourself together, have pitched, at a certain level, and you are not able to apply emotional intelligence, you would not have the right outcomes. And remember that what I said earlier is that, personal branding is not a series of activities without, an outcome. And therefore, please hold on. And therefore, the outcome, and therefore, emotional intelligence is a critical piece, really important piece of personal branding. So it's a case of, and remember I illustrated about the girl who is building a personal brand because she would like to go into politics and become play in the parliament or at whatever level. Look, at whatever level it is she's starting out, it's important for her to know how to manage, her own emotions, and also how to manage and harness the emotions of others around her. I think Mr. Older just humorously talked about, having verbal diarrhea, and is understanding, who's the target audience? What do I say to them at what time? I'll give a quick illustration, and not because I'm a Lady Gaga fan, but I remember when Lady Gaga had a show in some part of Europe, not sure if it's Norway or something. But it was said that every fan who arrived at that venue arrived with a personal invitation letter from Lady Gaga. I felt that that was a high display of emotional intelligence, because what she has now said is she understands that her audience are quirky. She understands that her audience needs to feel special. So she has written each person, and everybody arrived at the conference feeling like, oh, I'm so special, that's why I got this letter. But it was a mass-produced letter. May I please just ask that alongside emotional intelligence is so critical that you add cultural intelligence to it. And CI is very important. And, you know, with CI is also understanding the cultural nuances. You'd like to play on the international scene. You would like to be an international banker or whatever. And then you don't know that the Chinese like to be, you know, revered, and that when you're talking to an older Chinese person or handing him even a basic card, you should do it with both your hands. You don't understand that, you know, a sculpture is a wrong gift to give, you know, somebody who's from, as an example, the UAE. So cultural intelligence is also as important as emotional intelligence. So I think the short response to that is both are critical. I say to people often, people say to me, what is the one thing you wish you had learned earlier? I'm like, I wish I had learned emotional intelligence, you know, way earlier than I did. It could have saved me, you know, a lot of knocks on my head, because I was one of those, you know, say it as you feel it, you know, just do it as it doesn't work like that, girl, not unless you're not wanting to rise. Chizo, you are muted. You're muted.
Thank you. I'm bringing this to you, Mr. Alder, and it says, is branding the same for healthcare professionals as it is for others? No, being industry, is branding the same for health professionals as others, being that we are expected to be very conservative? Is branding the same for healthcare professionals as others, knowing that the industry is known to be conservative? If so, how can I get ahead with branding?
You know, it's funny. There's still this happening on dressing and externalities to the detriment of the internal values. But I read law. You know, I read law. That was my degree. And when we were in law school, we were taught that lawyers don't wear red. And there's a reason that lawyers wear black. First of all, they deal with your money, you know, they take it from black to red, you know, and then they try to be very serious people. What I'm trying to say is that you are not going to have confidence in a lawyer who is like wearing a red jacket. You know, you're not going to be confident in a doctor who is wearing jeans, for example, and is too young. There are just some professions that have safeguards in terms of uniform and clothing. In the same way that until recently, banking is very conservative because people need to trust you with money. Let me give you an example. First Bank. For a long time, First Bank in those days could not build a branch with glass, a lot of glass, because the customer base did not trust too much transparency in the banking hall. So a lot of the First Bank branches were walled off, and Zenith had the same problem until they gradually introduced glass into the system and the people could get into it. What I'm trying to say is that it is what gives people confidence in you that matters. Now, how do you brand yourself as a healthcare professional? There's limited wear, as you very well know. If you're a surgeon, you're most likely in overalls and things like that. If you're a nurse, you're most likely in a nurse's uniform. If you're a doctor, you're most likely in an overall. So what do? It is how good you are and your level of emotional intelligence. There are doctors that are very good, but the level of emotional intelligence is so low that nobody wants to see them. They treat people like patients as if they are files. They give injections as if, doctors most likely don't give injections, but there are nurses who just give injections as if you're a meal, and things like that. The emotional intelligence is so low, and it's so critical that patients want you and want to ask after you if you're a doctor, if you're a medical practitioner, then you know that. So it's a combination of your competence and emotional intelligence. It's so important that you have emotional intelligence, because without it, you're not going anywhere. You may be very good. You have to be extraordinarily good. And people can't do without you for you to get along and get away with not having emotional intelligence. So that is very important. So if you're branding yourself, develop empathy for people. Stop treating patients as if they are files and numbers and meals and animals, as if you're a veterinary surgeon, and everything, and then dress appropriately, talk appropriately, attend the right seminars. When rounds are being made, make intelligent contributions, show that you think, be able to think outside the box. That is very important. Let me cite a personal example of that. There was a time that we were invited by bank to pitch for a job, and they wanted to propagate the brand of the bank, and they didn't know how. One consultant told them it was going to take 3 years to do, design the signages, install the signages, letterheads, all those things. And then we go there and we say, look, we're going to do this in 6 months. And it looked as if we're lying. So they asked us, how is it possible that we're going to do this? And we showed them London Underground Railway map and said, this is how we're going to adapt this to this, and this is how we're going to go. And everybody was shocked. Why? We were able to take something from a discipline outside the box and put it in the box and apply it to the box. And we solved the problem. In fact, we did that job in 5 months, and they gave us a retainer based on that. What I'm saying is that the fact that you're a doctor, you are not a good doctor because you only know doctoring. You're a good doctor when you can think culturally, when you have cultural nuances, when you are well-traveled, when you are read, and you don't need to travel all over the place to travel. Just reading can take you places, and everything. So you need to do all those things. And of course, talk appropriately, talk intelligently, dress appropriately. You can't wear bathroom slippers, all these flip-flops to work and expect to be respected, and everything. You can't talk anyhow and talk carelessly and walk carelessly and expect to be respected. This is how these things work. There's no magic to it. They're just very simple, very basic things that you need to pay attention to. But most importantly, it's important that you have emotional intelligence, be empathetic, being able to sympathize with the human condition and circumstances. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And this comes to you, Nkiru. And the question is, we agree that it's important to communicate value, but in building your brand, are you supposed to be clear about this value before you even start to build your brand and communicate your brand? Are you supposed to be clear about those values before you start to build and communicate your brand?
Yes. Yes, you are. I believe we said quite earlier that the premise of brand building is completely based on your values. So who are you? What do you value? Is it integrity? Is it fun? Is it respect for one another? Is it, what is your value? It is on that premise, that you would build your brand. Brand building is, not done in isolation of your value. It is the basis of, your values are the basis for which your brand is built. Remember that I gave that example of Lady Gaga, and it feels to me that perhaps one of her values is connecting with the quirky, and she's doing everything she can, to connect with the quirky. If I go back to corporates, and their brand values, if I think about one of the big brands here in South Africa, they're so big on service. They have an outbreak of people on the floor. In the beginning, I used to think, I'm not trying to steal anything here. Please don't ask me if you can help me, I'm good. Surely I know how to get into a store and get out. But, later on, I found that service was a huge, huge part of them. So you cannot build your brand without your values. The premise for which you build your brand is completely based on your values. I'd like to lean in on a conversation that is going on in the chatbot, and I think someone was saying that there is a lot of comment that is quite Nigerian based. But I think that the way to look at it is to say, if I am armed with cultural intelligence, then if I find myself in Asia, I will conduct myself accordingly. If I find myself wherever, then I will conduct myself, accordingly. So, take the principles, but you go off, with your CI and find what your context is and how you can translate that. Over to you, Chizo.
And Chizo, can I ask you what?
Please go ahead, Mr. Alder. Please go ahead.
Okay, there's one thing that is you can't have a brand without, and that is quality. That is why you are not going to find any international brand saying that their products are qualitative, because it is assumed. Quality is assumed. When last did you take a Samsung phone out of the box and it didn't work? Or a Sony television out of the box and it didn't come on? Or an Apple product out of the box and it doesn't come on? So quality is assumed. The second thing that you need to pay attention to, no matter what your values are, is integrity. What I mean by integrity, I'm not talking about moral integrity, as important as it is. I'm talking about the integrity that says what I promised is what I would deliver. And so if there needs to be efficiencies, if there needs to be for me to be able to do things in a faster way, in a better way, I will do it. But you keep your promises. You keep your promises. And there are industries in which promise keeping is like holiness. Take the sewing industry, the fashion industry. It's like there's something wrong with tailors. They just don't believe in keeping promises. And so the reason is because they're not able to calculate their throughput. They're just taking a lot of clothes, input, looking at only the money. They don't calculate how many clothes can I sew in a day? How many clothes can I cut in a day? How many can I cut in a year? What is our throughput? What is our product? What is our output? And all those things. Another area that I found is that people in the building industry, there's just no integrity in that area. Promises are made that are not kept. Oh, I'm coming, By that they mean that, they tell you that they're coming to VI and that they're very, very close to VI, whereas they're in Yanopaja, and everything. And I don't know why people do that. Just go out there and say, I am sorry, I am not able to make it today. We are sorry we are not able to deliver this quantity today. We will deliver tomorrow. Simple, integrity. Then nobody can hold it. You are not lying. Nobody can hold you to everybody can hold it to your word. And it promotes dependence on you and confidence in you. So quality, integrity, you cannot build a brand without quality. It is a given. It is a sine qua non. There's nothing you can do about it. It is intrinsic to the brand, and the most valuable brands in the world focus on quality. Thank you, Chizo.
All right, thank you very much for that. I've got just one question per person. I would call it up for questions. And I'm going to start with you, Nkiru. This goes, as an entrepreneur, how do I separate my personal brand from my corporate brand? Because most of the time, people even call me by my name and by the name of my company, which is Dugo. And they don't even know that I have a personal brand and the name that I'm also trying to project.
Oh, okay. I was also going to say, nice to see you, Mrs. Dugo. But let's get straight into the question. Look, I think that it depends on what stage, that your brand is at. What stage is it at? And also, what is your objective? I'm asking what your objective is because sometimes people's personal brands are much stronger than their corporate brands, and you find that they're inadvertently pulling, the corporate brand. So it sounds to me like your objective is to separate both, but you've got to think about the pros and the cons. And we've talked a lot about culture here, but you would find that in a place like Nigeria, people walk into they walk into shops, to stores, and they would say, is your madam around? And I'm thinking, but surely you can buy without, the madam. But it says to me, and obviously being a marketer, that there's some insights there. Are they coming to the store because your corporate brand is not strong enough to stand on its own as yet, and therefore your personal brand is pulling your corporate brand? But whatever it is, I think just in terms of risk management, it'll be great ultimately, and this is my professional advice, when you have grown to a certain level, to make the separation if you can. Obviously, there are pros and there are cons, but I believe it was earlier that we talked about systems and structures. And the one way in which you can make the separation is by setting up a system and structure. What does that mean? It means that the entire business is not all about you. It means that you also have competent people who can do what you do. And because you are building a corporate brand, you would have passed on to them all of the nuances, all of the skills, all of the values that they require to build a brand. It probably is a far-off example, but it is an example nonetheless. And it's to think about who owns Coca-Cola. None of us, purchases a bottle of Coca-Cola and we're thinking, who owns, Coca-Cola? So if this is your objective, then you've got to be deliberate. If your objective is to separate both brands, then you've got to be deliberate about setting up a system and structure that passes the right values and ingredients to your system and structure so that your brand is able to operate without you. But again, you've got to weigh the pros and the cons. I hope that was useful, Mrs. Dugo.
Thank you very much, Nkiru. I will just weigh into that from a place of experience as well. And for 10 years, I ran an organization called Brand Zone. As an enterprise, people knew, could relate with, and totally could buy into Brand Zone as a well-positioned brand. But then Chisom Malize on its own is also a great brand people could relate with. And so I say to you, Mrs. Dugo, work hard on building both because you sure can do both. Your personal brand does not stop you from building the organization that you have founded, like Mr. Alder has said. Build the systems and structure for that organization so it can stand on its own, sustain itself, have longevity, and you are doing that already because it's a brand that a lot of organizations know. So probably the question is, have you defined Ngozi Nzegu as a brand? Which of course it is possible for you to do. Write and develop contents that people would know you for. Find a passion that people can resonate with. If anybody says they want to speak to Ngozi Nzegu, they want to be able to speak to Ngozi Nzegu on a different scale with a different content. And if I take that further also, when I begin to look for the people who are developing capacity for young people, I will definitely look for Nkiru Olumide Ojo, who is running Lighthouse Network. It doesn't stop her from being the great marketing, branding, and communication expert that is painting the whole of African continent with brand working for a corporate organization. So you must work hard at defining both, separating both, and having the building blocks required for the various caps that you wear. And I tell you, you can do that. I mean, just take a look at what Nkiru is doing at Lighthouse with the work she's doing with young people. If you Google Lighthouse today, you would see that work. If you Google her professional career, you would also see that. So it's actually doable. And the very last question, and yes, the very last question, and that's for you, Mr. Alder. The last question that we have comes, as a politician, is it possible to build a personal brand that can be projected positively regardless of how messy your political party is doing?
Oh, yes. Most people don't know this, but I'm saying it in public for the first time. I don't know if you've ever heard of JK, JK Jimmy Agbaje. He was a pharmacist that nobody knew. He was a professional, and he was going to go into the political system. And as you know, most parties are what they are in Nigeria. And we were able to build him and project him so that today everybody shouts JK, JK, JK. It was a deliberate thing. It was a strategic thing. And that work lasted about 3 years. And so we came up, one of the things we came up with was something called JKOK, it just caught fire. And so it's possible. The JKs of this world have shown that this is possible. In fact, as a politician, if you want to make any headway, you better build a personal brand, because the more messed up your party is, the more your personal brand needs to be strong so that you can distinguish yourself from the mess that is the party. So it's possible, and you must do it as a young person. But also, it's not just about monikers or about posturing or about photography, as Nkiru has said. It's also about, what do you bring to the table? What policy do you bring to the table? What are you known for? What are you going to be known for? Are you known for youth development? Are you known for technology? Are you known for ideas? Are you known for organization? Are you known for networks? Are you known for philanthropy, in your local zone and all those things? You need to do all those things because there's a matrix to become a political brand. We can't discuss that because that's not the focus of our discussion. It's a bit, too particular for this kind of platform. But yes, you can and you must develop your personal brand if you want to make it in politics, so that one day we can say JKOK.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting ride. We've been here close to 2 hours and it's never been as great. I'd like to also at this time summarize. Thank you also the participants for all of your contributions and questions that you've thrown in here. We appreciate those. I'd like to at this time say a thank you to all of our panelists. We are just going to summarize this session so we can get some tidbits from this. I would also like to say it's a good time to actually pick your pen and paper if you haven't been doing that, so that we can live with certain things. And these are just going to be the nuggets from all of the discussions and interaction of today. And I'm going to go with, in summary, we've learned today that for us to build a great brand, we must go to the drawing board. So let's all go to the board and define who you are. That's the first step. Define who you are, and that's where you do the visioning that Mr. Alder and Nkiru has brought to us today. Define who you are, create your vision board, and tell yourself the truth about who you really are. That is, who will you want the world to know about you? And the best thing to do, the best way to do that is taking it back to the question is of creating a powerful, clear idea and positive idea about who you are in clear terms so that the world can connect to something that you have defined. The second, define your audience. Who is your target? Who are you speaking to? Are you speaking to the whole of the world? Are you speaking to youth? Are you speaking to the buyers of your product? Are you speaking to your organization? Are you speaking define who your audience is. If you work in the ministry and you are having and you have followership, define your audience to be able to connect to them. If you work in corporation, define your audience very clearly, whether they're your team, your subordinates, or your superiors, or executive management, or even the marketplace that you serve. Define, therefore, your story. What are you selling? That's where it is very, very important to bring the unique selling proposition. What are you selling to people? Are you selling the great thing about what you do? Are you selling the value that you bring to the table? So define your value. Very importantly, we learned today also to leverage communication channels. Do not build a beautiful bride and hide it under the bed. Let your light shine forth. And for you to let your light shine forth, leverage social, digital communication platforms or any platform whatsoever that you want. Are you blogging today? So if you're a lawyer and you think that lawyers do not advertise, do you write blogs that teach people how to use or engage legal services so that if they put your name online, it comes back to you and they would call you as a professional to be able to give those services? What platform do you think works best for you? Is it Twitter? Is it LinkedIn? Are you blogging? Whichever one. Engage, engage, engage. Let people know what you do and who you are. And then the other is appearance. We've talked about it. How should you show up? And how are you showing up? Do you run into the street first and realize that you are wearing purple over yellow? Or do you start to talk without being coordinated in your thoughts? How do you show up so that people can so that you can gain the respect of people, so that you can gain attention of the audience? Do you walk into the meeting room and you sit at the back of the room because you do not want to be known? Do you show up sneaking in and sneaking out without standing confidently so that your light would shine? Let your light shine forth. You can never build a great brand without finding ways to let your light shine forth. You can shine forth in your communication, in your ability to hold the audience. You can shine forth in the content that you deliver, the quality of your work, your engagement with people, the way you demonstrate emotional intelligence, the way that you manage communication, and like Mr. Alder also mentioned, the way that you are able to excellently send out the right communication to the right people. In addition, we also learned today to be authentic. Be you, be who you are. Be who you are, don't be everything to everybody. So don't want to be a Lady Gaga today and tomorrow you want to be totally different. And then you begin to confuse the marketplace. You have the right to define the path that works for you based on your work, based on your profession, based on your audience, based on what you want to communicate to the world, but be consistent. Be consistent because you want people to be able to relate with who you are based on those communications, based on your degree of consistency. And then on my own part, I would leave us with this, which I've also always held on because I know it's very instructive. The great Oscar Wilde, a poet, a writer, and so many things in between, has said to us, be yourself, everyone else is already taken. Be yourself, everyone else is already taken. And what does that say to us? When you have defined your brand, be authentic. Be consistent in communicating that brand. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. And it's on this note that I would like to say another thank you to all of our faculty. Thank you for what you have brought in today. Thank you for the learning that you have shared. Thank you also for wanting to share of yourself and then bringing knowledge to the world and to our WIMBIZ team. At this point, I'd like to hand over back to you, Ikoma, so that you can take on the project to a close. Thank you, Nkiru. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you so much.
Really enjoyed your sessions.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Chizo. Thank you, Mr. Leke. We learned a whole lot. I want to thank you. Thank you. Please kindly, we're going to send an evaluation right now to you. Please take out time to fill it. We want to get a feedback from every one of you so that we can know that you had a great time today. HQ, please send in the evaluation. Thank you. Please fill out the evaluation. The link has been sent on the chat box. WIMBIZ HQ, please send the link, the evaluation link on the chat box. Okay, thank you. I don't know about you, but I wrote a whole lot in my jotter. I don't know, I almost filled it all out. Thank you, Nkiru, I learned a whole lot. Thank you, Mr. Leke, it was amazing. Chibuzo, thank you. Chizo, thank you. You just summarized everything perfectly. You made it just come all true together. Thank you, we appreciate every one of you. We want to use this opportunity to also appreciate our sponsors. Want to thank you once again. Thank you, First Bank, for sponsoring the June edition of the WIMBIZ Roundtable. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And then at this juncture, we want to be able to ask all our participants that are not yet WIMBIZ associates, kindly join us. We would appreciate you. We're having a great time. WIMBIZ has changed the lives of so many women, and I'm certain your own will not be different. We look forward to working with you. We have another program, WIMBIZ has another program that's coming up in June, the WIMBIZ Institute training on Thursday, June 17. WIMBIZ Institute training, it's on Thursday, June 17th. The time is 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. The topic is finance for non-financial directors. I'll take that again. WIMBIZ's upcoming program is the Women on Boards Institute training. Topic is finance for non-financial directors. The date is Thursday, June 17th, 2021. Time is 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Thank you. I want to thank our panelists. We appreciate every one of you. Thank you for making this program a success. I'm sure we all had a great time, and we look forward to the next WIMBIZ Roundtable. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic evening. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful one. Thank you, everyone.